Okay, I'm here with Tyler Boden, Bodenenergysolutions. We're here for our second video in our series of our solar series, home solar series. Today we're going to talk about designing a home solar system, and I guess Tyler's going to go step by step through the process and what he did in designing my system. I remember when I first called Tyler to have my solar system, or to get a quote and to start that process, the first thing Tyler asked me for was the green button data. And I'm like, green button what? You know? So Tyler guided me through the process over the phone of going to my Southern California Edison account and how to locate where it's at, and told me what to download, and so I got it all downloaded and emailed to him. And so Tyler, from there, I'm going to throw it in your corner. Just, you know, take me and the viewers here through the process and what you do to design a home solar system, and what role did that green button data play?
Yeah, absolutely. So to start off, you know, the purpose of solar, the reason that you get solar is to offset your electricity usage, your energy usage, and so what we really want to do is find out what your usage is, so that we know what size solar system you need to install on your house in order to offset your cost. And so there's a number of different ways to access your usage. The easiest way is probably just to provide a single electric bill. Those electric bills tend to have an annual graph that shows your past year of usage, and when you go solar, that's your billing cycle. It's an annual billing cycle. So having the information for just the past 12 months is what we really need, and one electric bill is sufficient. But when I asked you for the green button data, that's what I typically ask for, because it provides a more detailed look at the usage. Rather than showing just monthly totals of kilowatt hour usage, it actually narrows it down to the hour. Sometimes even further, down to 15 minutes. And so that's a very accurate way of looking at how the usage breaks down, what hours of the day you're using more power than other hours of the day. And I use a modeling platform that allows me to analyze that data very accurately, and then apply solar production on top of it to really see what your offset is going to be once you do have solar. The reason that the hours matter is, as you know, most utilities, particularly in California, have implemented time of use rates. And so depending on what time of day you're using power would determine how much your cost is, or if you have solar, how much your credit might be if you actually send power to the utility. So really knowing on an hourly basis what your usage and what your production would be helps us to more accurately analyze the data and figure out what your bill offset will be with solar.
And does that help also in dictating how many panels you put on the roof?
It does, yes. And in your case, you got a battery with your system, so it actually also helps us to analyze what the impact of adding the battery would be with solar.
Yeah, I know. I remember originally when we were talking, I hadn't bought an electric car yet, and so you were going off the green button data without the charging of the electric car, and you recommended 14 panels. Mm-hmm. And so I remember asking you, because I wanted to oversize the system a little bit, for a couple reasons. One, I wanted to accommodate, have enough panels to accommodate the extra electricity usage for charging an electric car. Mm-hmm. And also I wanted to maximize the federal tax credits while I could.
Sure.
Because, you know, as you know, they keep declining each year. Mm-hmm. And so I remember asking you, how many more panels can you get on that upper section? You said, I think I can get 4 more up there. And I said, well, hey, throw 4 more up there. So we went with 18.
It was a tight squeeze.
It was a tight squeeze, but you made it fit. So and then also, what type of solar panel did you use on my roof?
In your case, we use the Panasonic panels.
Right. The 5 kilowatts, or?
So each panel, I think, was 330 watts.
330 watts.
Yeah, and so that's a DC rating on each panel. Basically what that indicates is in perfect lab conditions, the rating of the panel is how much power it could produce in a perfect condition. In real world conditions, there's a lower number. It's kind of like, I relate it to miles per gallon on a car. You've got, your factory rated miles per gallon, but then you've got your actual miles per gallon.
Yeah.
So the same is somewhat true with solar panels, where the rating of the panel, if it's 330 watts, that's a lab test rating. But in real world conditions with perfect angles to the sun, it might be 315 watts or something like that. And so that's an important consideration with the design of the system, is what the rating of each panel is, how much real world power each panel would produce, and you add those up together, and depending on how many kilowatt hours you want to produce over the year, also considering the angle of the roof, which orientation it's pointed at. Getting as close to south or southwest as possible is best, because you get sun throughout the day and throughout the year. Being in the northern hemisphere, the sun drops lower on the horizon to the south, and so getting to a south or southwest orientation is ideal. And the actual angle has a bearing on how much power the panels will produce depending on their rating. So all those variables are factored into my analysis when I put together a quote.
Yeah, and is there a certain angle or a certain degree of angle that they have to be placed at?
So generally what we do is whatever the slope of the roof is just what we install at. It's not very aesthetically pleasing to, if you have a sloped roof, to add additional angle to it. It just wouldn't look very nice. So we'll just generally just match, whatever the angle of the roof is. Ideal angle at a due south orientation it matches the latitude of the location that you're at. So here in Orange County, California, in between 32 and 34 degrees latitude, and so that would be an optimal angle for solar to be installed. But most roofs aren't angled at that. They're mostly 18 or 20, 25 maybe degrees. And so we just match that, and whatever that angle is, I factor into my analysis to determine how much power would be produced.
Get back to what you were saying about the solar panels, the capacity and what they can produce. So ideally, then, that's what you're looking is for the preferred location on the roof to maximize sun exposure, so you can get as close to that 330 rating that you can get.
Yeah, and so like I said, you'll probably never reach the 330 watt output per panel, because that's lab conditions.
Right.
So the performance, it's STC is the lab conditions rating. Right. It's standard test conditions. PTC is performance test conditions, and those are the real world output numbers. So with a 330 watt panel, you're probably looking at about between 310 and 315 watts. PTC, or performance test conditions. So that's the number that I use, and I multiply that by however many panels that you have. You've got 18, so 310, call it, times 18, and that would be your total wattage output on the system in a perfect sun scenario, when the sun angle is perfect. And obviously throughout the day there's kind of a bell curve as the sun rises and falls, but that's all factored into the analysis.
Right. Yeah, and I guess that's why you avoided that one portion of my roof that basically had an easterly type angle. So I mean, that probably wouldn't have worked very well at all.
Yes, and you can't do much about your roof. Your roof is positioned the way that it's positioned. It's angled the way and shaped the way that it's shaped. There's only so much that you can do with the roof that you have. And so in some cases you have to install on an eastward face, for example.
Right.
But that's not going to be an optimal face.
Right.
So if panels are pointed to the east, maybe you have to add an extra panel or two to reach the amount of energy that you want to produce in a year.
I know sometimes people want to, in talking to some of my friends, they don't like the panels on the front of their house because they don't like the way they look, and they'll opt to put them on another side of the roof, which is not optimal. So, I mean, to me, that's self-defeating. I mean, you're not going to get maximum efficiency out of it. If you wanted to, you'd have to add more panels and pay more money to get the same amount of energy if you just did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously everyone's preferences are different. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Myself personally, I think solar panels are beautiful. Obviously, I'm biased, but yeah, you know, there's been a lot of improvements in solar technology in the products to make them look a lot nicer. Most of them, or all of them, really have black frames these days, which look very nice.
Right.
Most of them also have completely black back sheets underneath the cells. So when you're looking at it from the ground, it looks like it's just a black sheet or something like that. You know, it's very clean looking. So that encourages people to want to install in the front of their homes more frequently these days. But you know, sometimes people don't want to do that, and that's totally understandable. They have to obviously drive up their driveway and look at them every day. It's their house, and so in certain cases, installing in an area that's less than ideal is okay. You would just have to add more panels in order to accommodate the energy that you need.
Yeah, and like way mine are placed, I mean, when you're driving up my street, you can hardly even see the ones I have on my flat roof, and you see about half of the other ones. So I mean, you don't see it anyway. And I really didn't care. I thought they looked fine to begin with. So
yeah, and you know, one thing that's important is just making sure to get a good installer that is going to make it look really clean. You know, you don't want a sort of janky looking install. You want a clean looking install. So it's important to have a high quality installer do the job.
Now, I remember when you presented me with the book. I mean, you put together a real professional presentation before I signed the contract, and you had the Panasonic panels in there, and then there was another panel in there too. If you remember, I don't know if you remember. It's been some, but we opted to go with the Panasonic versus that one. I think the other panel was a little more expensive.
Yes.
And it produced a little more energy. Why don't you explain to me what that was and why we opted to go with the Panasonic?
Yeah, so the other option I had for you at the time was an LG panel. It was 360 watts instead of 330. And LG has a range of different wattage options at different price points, but that particular panel that they had was more expensive than the Panasonic. It's better efficiency and was kind of a newer product at the time. And so it was one that, you know, I'll use in a certain case when it's necessary, or if somebody wants it, if they want kind of the latest and greatest, the highest efficiency that they can possibly get. In your case, though, the Panasonic seemed to make more sense because you had plenty of wattage in each panel that Panasonic provided, but you had limited space on your roof. And so, whereas the Panasonic is only about 62 inches or so tall, the LG was quite a bit higher at 66 or so. And so just a few inches really made all the difference in your case, which was a reason to go with Panasonic instead.
So probably reality, what would have happened, I would have got less panels on my roof with the LG than with the Panasonic, but in the long run, Panasonic would have produced just as much, if not more, energy than the LG, so why spend the extra money? Yeah,
I mean, the way that it generally works out is if you get a higher wattage panel, you don't need as many of them, you know?
Right.
And so the target wattage of your entire system is going to be the same regardless of which panel you go with. And you might get, 17 LGs or 18 Panasonics, whatever that number is, you get what you need to get. And like you said, over the course of time, they'll generally produce the same amount of power as long as the degradation rate is similar. And Panasonic and LG both have very similar degradation rates.
Okay. Yeah, and the Panasonics have been around forever.
Panasonic's been around forever. LG's also been around for quite some time. Both are top options on the market right now.
Cool. So one thing I wanted to ask you, Tyler, is you represent 5 companies.
Yes.
Why 5? Why not just one?
Yeah. So I worked for a single company for a long time, and at one point I decided that it made more sense for me as a consultant working with customers that are looking to go solar on their homes. One company isn't necessarily always the best option for everyone. And so I felt that for me as an individual consulting with homeowners, it'd be better for me to have multiple options that I can recommend to them so that they can decide among those options which is actually best for them in their particular case based on what their interests and preferences are. And so, you know, with the companies that I represent, there's a wide range of type of company, size of company, what their kind of philosophy is on what the products are that are best, or what type of mounting method they prefer to use. So I have a variety of different options that, you know, I can educate homeowners on, that I'm working with, and help them to decide which one that they seem to align with the best.
Great. Well, this concludes this video. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel. I'm going to have a link to Tyler Boden's website in the description below. Please click on that, contact him if you have any questions regarding your solar needs, and we'll see you later. Take care and have a great day.